This is our opportunity not only to spotlight each one of our speech categories, but also to see and hear the speeches that were presented today from each of our national champions. Be prepared to laugh and cry, be entertained and provoked to thought. For those of you who have young children with us in the hall, we'll provide a brief intermission kind of about midway so that you can take your younger students out with you for a stretch of their legs and a drink of water so that we have time for a couple of speeches that have disclaimers. We're gonna get started with one of NCFCA's hallmark events, and that is Biblical Thematic. Biblical Thematic explores 3 or more literature selections to develop a biblical theme in a creative way. It incorporates scripture, aids. We love this event for the powerful and redemptive truth that our students can convey. Tonight's Biblical Thematic is being presented by Benjamin Neumann. The theme of Benjamin's Biblical Thematic is death. Encouraging. It actually is an encouraging take from 2 angles that Benjamin shared with us. First, he wanted to thank his mom for pushing him to do a 3rd year of Biblical Thematic or biblical presentation. And now, because Benjamin believes that this is his opportunity to tell believers that they are not cursed by death's final touch. So welcome to the NCFCA championship stage, Mr. Benjamin Neumann.
Here I am. Oh, who am I? Well, allow me to introduce to you myself. My name is Death. Yes, death, the thing every human feels and every mortal experiences. I have been around for so long, ever since, well, when was it? Clerk, remind me, when was the first death?
Oh, yes, sire. Well, that is Genesis
4, 3 through 11. Now, in the course of time, Cain brought some fruits of the soil and brought them as an offering to the Lord. And Abel also brought an offering to the Lord, fat portions from the firstborn of his flock, and brought it to the Lord. And the Lord looked with favor upon Abel and his offering, but upon Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. So Cain was angry, and his face was downcast. But the Lord said to him, Cain, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? For if you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But behold, if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at the door, and it seeks to devour you. But you must rule over it. Then Cain said to his brother, let us go out into the field. And while they were out there, he attacked his brother and killed him. Then the Lord said, Cain, where is your brother, Abel?
I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?
He replied. What have you done? The Lord said. Listen, your brother's blood cries out from me, from the ground which received its blood, from your own hand. Now you are under a curse, and you are going to be driven from the ground which received your brother's blood. And just like that, death has entered. All because of me, I caused a brother to kill a brother. Nothing could escape me. Oh, not even the son of a king. Clerk, remind them of all the lives I took in Egypt.
Oh, yes, sire, that one's my favorite. Exodus
12, 28 through 30. Then the Israelites did as the Lord commanded through Moses and Aaron. Then that night at midnight, the Lord struck down all of the firstborn sons of Egypt, to the firstborn son of Pharaoh, who sat on the throne,
to the son of the prisoner in the dungeon,
and all of the firstborn sons of the livestock. And that night, Pharaoh and all of his officials and all of the people of Egypt awoke during the night, and you could hear a loud wail. That night, there was not a single house in where someone had not died. You see, nothing can escape me. I was the one who caused brother to kill brother. I was the one who took the life of Pharaoh's newborn son. I was the one who caused the wailing throughout all of Egypt. Who can possibly escape me?
sire. What about Lazarus? You know, John
11, 38 through 44. Then the Lord called for the stone to be removed. But Martha, the sister of the man who died, said, Lord, by this time there will surely be a stench, for he has already been dead for 4 days. But Jesus said to her, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? So they removed the stone, and he walked up, and he said, Lord, I thank you, for you have heard me, and I know you always will hear me. But because of the people I am standing by, I have said this, that they may see and believe you have sent me. Then, lifting his spirit and calling out with a loud voice, he says, Lazarus, come forth! And so he came forth, bound hand and foot in grave clothes, and his face covered in cloth. Jesus said, cut him loose and let him go. I told you never to mention Lazarus again. Yes, Lazarus may have escaped me, but I killed the man who saved him. Yes, Jesus caused some complications for me. So, clerk, remind them of how I killed the very Son of God.
Yes, sire, I'm so sorry, sire. That one is John
19, 23 through 30. Now, they parted his garments, to each part a soldier, 4 parts in total. And then, seeing that the tunic was without seam, they said, well, let us not tear the tunic, but cast lots for it. Thus fulfilling the scripture that went, they divided my garments and cast lots for my clothing. And there, by the cross, Jesus saw his mother and his mother's sister from Clopas, and the disciple of whom Jesus loved. And he said to her, woman, behold your son. And turning to the disciple, he said, behold your mother. And from that hour, the disciple took his mother to his very own home. Then, knowing that now all things were accomplished, he said, by the cross was a pitcher of sour wine. They grabbed a sponge, dipped it in the sour wine, and put it on some hyssop. Then they lifted the hyssop up to his lips. And after he drank, he said, "It is finished." And bowing his head, he gave up his spirit.
Just like that, the Son of Man has passed. All because of me.
Yet, one thing still does confuse me, sire. What did he mean by, "it is finished"?
Well, it meant that he was finished. And I knew he truly was finished when they laid him in a place dedicated to me. A tomb.
Oh, the tomb! Of course, the tomb.
John 20, 6 through 9. Then Peter ran into the tomb and saw the strips of linen laying separate from the cloth which covered Jesus' face. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved, who did make it to the tomb first, also ran in. He saw and he believed. Yet they still did not know that Jesus had to rise from the dead.
What? Rise from the dead? Well, this is impossible. I owned him. He was owned by me. No, this can't be what he meant. This can't be what he meant by "it is
finished." We are no longer restricted to death. We are no longer cursed to death's final touch, because we know that it is finished. Thank you. God bless.
In our impromptu event, students draw an unpredictable topic from abstract words, phrases, quotations, or table topics, and then they have 2 minutes to plan a speech. This event really teaches them to think on their feet. This year's impromptu national champion is Abbagail Fagot. The topic that Abbagail drew today was, quote, "This is the world. There are terrible and beautiful things in it. Don't be afraid," end quote. This is Abbagail's second year of doing an impromptu, and she loves that every round is a different speech. She enjoys talking about personal events and the Bible, as well as the conversational interaction with judges. Her mom originally made her do impromptu for the first time last year, and she didn't really like it for the first time. But she tried again, and she ended up falling in love. All glory to God. Abbagail?
Oh, do you see a shirt? Take a picture? Now, you're probably wondering, Abby, why did you just start an impromptu speech with a little bit of an interpretation? This is not an interp. Don't worry, I promise it's applicable, and I'll get into it later. Today, I was given the topic, "This is the world." Beautiful and terrible things will happen. Don't be afraid. Now, we're going to be looking at this topic through 3 different ways. First, a personal example. Second, a literary example. And thirdly, a biblical example. All right, let's jump right in with that first example, that of a personal example. Now, this does directly relate back to my intro. My name is Abbagail Fagot. F-A-G-O-T. Yeah. Now, I'm the youngest of 7, and all 6 of my siblings, including me, have played public school, high school sports. Well, I learned that my last name was a little bit of an icon in 7th grade when my cross-country team decided that it would be a great idea to put our first initial and then our last name on the back of the shirt. Yeah, A. Fagot. Yeah. At meets, people would reach over and take photos of my shirt because they couldn't believe it. Guys, I was famous. Yeah. I remember crying to my sister because I was an innocent 7th grader. I didn't know what was going on. And I remember her telling me to trust in the Lord. In that moment, I hated my last name, but I've grown to love it. You see, because this is a name that the world would call terrible, but God turned it into something beautiful. No one can forget my last name. It's unforgettable. And now, my sister and I have talked about this, how we want to include this and keep it as our middle name when we get married, because it's been such a perseverance thing that we've had to go through in our lives. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at that second example, that of a literary example. We're going to be looking at the book, The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom. Now, this was set during World War II, but I would really like to focus on the part where Corrie is in the concentration camp. And she is put in a cabin with her sister that is infested with fleas. Now, when they are praying, Betsy thanks the Lord for the fleas. And something that I remember so poignantly is that Corrie says, Betsy, there is no way that I will thank God for the fleas. You see, this was something that the world would term terrible, but God turned it into something beautiful. Little did they know that because of the fleas, the Nazi soldiers would not enter that cabin. So they were able to preach the gospel to those women. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our third and final example, that of a biblical example. Now, we're going to be looking at the story of Job. Job had it all. He had sons, he had a wife, he had acres and acres of land, and don't forget, he was wealthy. Yeah, but everything was taken away like that. You see, even though everything was taken away, he still praised the Lord and was thankful to the Lord, even after his wife told him to forsake his God. Everything was stripped away from him. His sons and daughters were killed. His wealth was gone. And yet, he still praised the Lord. So the world would term this as a terrible experience, but honestly, it was beautiful because it strengthened Job's faith. All right, today I was given the topic, this is the world. There are beautiful and terrible things that will happen. Don't be afraid. We looked at this topic through 3 different ways. First, a personal example. Second, a literary example. And finally, a biblical example. What I really want you to take out of this speech today is to trust in the Lord. Jeremiah 29:11 states, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future." You see, lots of times the world would term things that are quote unquote terrible, but God uses those terrible things and makes them beautiful. So I encourage you to trust in the Lord and the plan that He has for your life. Thank you.
Extemporaneous challenges students to analyze a question about a newsworthy event from the past 90 days. They can gather information before the tournament, but they only have 20 minutes to prepare for the specific question they select before they speak to their judges. This year's extemporaneous champion is Evan Fairfax. Evan drew and prepared for the topic, should the Ninth Circuit uphold the ruling to return California's National Guard to Governor Newsom? Evan tells us he's always enjoyed the news and policy-related issues. One of his club members had recommended he try Extemp out, and he immediately fell in love with it. A fun bonus has been the camaraderie with other extempers and judges along the way. Evan enjoys reading through scripture to find principles and passages to tie with the news so that our faith and hope as Christians can be brought into submission. He wants to challenge us to view the events of the temporal leaders of this world from the perspective of Christ and his kingdom. He would like to give a shout out to the supporting Extemp prep coordinators who have worked so hard to keep him calm and to come alongside him this year. So ladies and gentlemen, Evan Fairfax.
Are all the judges ready? Then we'll begin. If you go to the Grand Canyon, one of the first things you'll be impressed by is just how massive and spectacular it is, and just how much it bears witness to a massive and spectacular God. But not everyone is just as impressed. If you go to the National Park Service website, you'll see a review that goes, "It's just a big hole. It's just a really, really big hole, and the Wi-Fi is terrible." This is an example of someone standing in front of a gigantic indicator and completely missing it because they're focused on something else that is a distraction. We ought not do that today. We ought to focus not on the distractions of political punditry, but rather on the facts we encounter today when we answer the question, should the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals uphold the ruling to return California's National Guard to Governor Newsom? The answer is no. The power should not be returned to Governor Newsom. The president has the authority to federalize the National Guard, but that does not mean the president has acted flawlessly with regard to LA. We'll be looking at this through two different points. First, we'll assess the situation, and then we'll answer the question. So first, to assess the situation. Why are we being asked this topic? Well, according to CNN, on June 6th, last Friday, the FBI conducted arrest raids for violent felons in Los Angeles. These raids were targeted at felons and included a disproportionate amount of persons residing in the United States illegally, though they were not specifically targeted at illegal aliens. This resulted in a wide variety, according to Politico, of well-coordinated protests which sparked immediately after these raids. This inflamed emotions even more following NBC's reporting that ICE began immigration-specific raids in Los Angeles' fashion district. NPR reported that what followed was, quote, a mostly peaceful mass demonstration, unquote, which essentially means that it was quite violent. According to the Los Angeles Times, vehicles were set on fire, ICE agents were attacked, and there were mass instances of assault and battery on Los Angeles' streets. Because of that, the New York Times reported that Trump called on Governor Newsom to engage the National Guard to quell the riot. Newsom refused, and 8 hours later, Trump issued a memo to the Department of Defense authorizing the federalizing of California's National Guard, which was dispatched the following day. ABC News reports that the president has the authority to federalize the National Guards of each state under the domestic disturbance codicils of Title 10 of Federal Code. According to the Washington Post, this was most recently invoked over the objections of a state governor by Democratic President Lyndon B. Johnson in 1965 to protect civil rights protesters in Alabama, Before that, it was invoked by President Eisenhower to ease security in the integration of Little Rock public schools. CBS News reported that Newsom sued Trump in the LA District Court, and of course, the judge there sided with Governor Newsom. So Trump appealed, and the Ninth Circuit issued a stay, allowing Trump to continue the use of the National Guard while the Ninth Circuit mulled over the decision. Which leads us to the second point, the answer. Should the Ninth Circuit uphold the ruling to return California's National Guard to Governor Newsom? And the answer is no. There is a solid legal foundation, whether or not we like the motives behind what the president is doing, for the president to nationalize the National Guard. It is most often used as one of its hallmark traits to suppress riots. But that does not mean the president is entirely in the clear. Having avoided that can of worms, the president decided to take a step over, open the next can of worms, and then dump it all over himself. When, according to the Defense Times, Trump deployed 700 Marines to Los Angeles. That is not permissible. It violates a long-held doctrine in American federal policy known as the posse comitatus, which prevents the American military from being deployed against Americans, which is exactly what the president did in this action. This law has been on the books since 1878 after being in place during Reconstruction. And though it is possible for the military to be used in various situations on US soil, it cannot be deployed against Americans as it is being done here. So yes, the president stands on a solid legal foundation for the use of the National Guard, but he does not stand on a solid legal foundation for using Marines against Americans. And this isn't just hypothetical. According to our friends over at Reuters, at 5:07 this evening, 2 US citizens were arrested by the Marines outside the Wilshire Federal Building in Los Angeles. That is not appropriate for the president to be placing Marines in compromising situations in which they are violating federal law because of their commander-in-chief's actions. That ought not be permitted. But when we look at the decisions that are made by the Biden administration, and when we look at the decisions that are made by the Trump administration, we see a litany of promises made, and many times promises not kept. It reminds us that we oftentimes place an undue amount of faith and hope in our worldly leaders, leaders who will always, always fail. That's why we look to a greater leader, a leader who is not of this temporal world. I always love the words of the hymn, "Praise thou, O great Jehovah." Place not your confidence in princes, nor on their many powers depend, for they will all die, to dust returning, and all their purposes shall end. We take hope in the fact that we don't have a flawed earthly leader who rules over the events of this world or of the events beyond. We take hope that we have a prince who does not fail, whose purposes do not end. And that prince is the Prince of Peace. Thank you.
Duo interpretations. They're taken from a single piece of published literature and acted out by 2 students. These students work together to bring the piece to life. They aren't allowed to touch each other, use props, or make eye contact, so that's an extra challenge, but they love the opportunity to work with a partner. This evening, I'd like to introduce to you this year's duo national champions, Josiah and Solomon Sabo. They'll be presenting for you an interpretation of If I Ran the Zoo. After a season of friction and fighting, brothers Josiah and Solomon decided they wanted to resolve the tension in their relationship before Solomon went off to college. Not sure about that strategy. But they report that duo was their method and it worked. They want to thank their mom for waking them up so that they actually made it to their rounds on time. And they want to thank God for repairing their relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, Josiah and Solomon Sabo.
Ready? All right.
It's a pretty good zoo.
Said, young Gerald McGrew.
And that fellow who runs it, he seems proud of it too. But if I ran the zoo,
Said young Gerald McGrew.
I'd make a few changes. That's just what I'd do.
Good morning, audience.
Good evening.
Good night.
We are Sabo,
A duo delight.
This boy daydreams what he would do.
If he was a zookeeper, his name is McGrew.
In this book that we performed today,
This boy named McGrew wants control all the way.
in that sense, well, we're all like McGrew.
If we were God, we'd
Surely
know what to do.
Yet we try and try and try once more.
Because being God is more or less hardcore.
We are human, not divine.
And so we worship, line by line.
This God complex that a lot of us has.
Is a burden we carry. It makes us feel bad.
So, join us in this story of a deuce.
If I Ran the Zoo by Dr. Seuss.
That's just what I'd do.
You said young Gerald McGrew.
I'd make a few changes if I ran the zoo. So I'd open each cage, unlock every pen, let all the animals go and start over again. And somehow or other, I think I could find some beast of a much more unusual kind. The lions and tigers and things of that such, they have appeared just aren't quite good enough.
Alright.
Oh, you can see things like that in any kind of zoo. It's awfully old-fashioned. I'll need something new. A 4-footed lion's not much of a beast. The one in my zoo will have 10 feet at least, with 5 on the left and 5 more on the right. Then people will stare and they'll say,
What a sight. This new zookeeper's really quite keen.
my new zoo, Miku Zoo, would make people gawk at the strangest of creatures that ever did walk. I'd get from my zoo a new sort of hen who roosts on another hen's top nut, and then another one roosts on the top nut of his, and another in his, and another in his, and so forth and upward and onward.
Gee whiz, bacock.
But that's just a start. I'd do much better than that. The next day they'll see me in my zookeeper hat. They'd be so surprised they'll all swallow their gum. Oh, they'll ask when they see my strange animals come.
Where do you suppose he gets things like that from?
And that's just what I do.
You said young Gerald McGrew.
Now, if you'd like to catch beasts you don't see every day, you'd have to go places quite out of the way.
Out of the way.
And to capture a fluffy bird called Bustard, who only eats custard sauce made out of mustard. Then I'd catch him in countries that no one can spell, like the country of Mata-Fa-Pata-Fa-Pel? Mata-Fa-Pata-Fa-Pel.
Oh! M-O-D-D-A F-A-B-O-D-D-A F-A-B-E-L-L-E Mata-Fa-Pata-Fa-Pel.
Ding! And then I'd load up 5 boats with a family of goats that sit down like dogs but have voices like goats. And then I'll I'll go down to the woods of Nantucket and capture a family of lunks in a bucket. And then people will say,
No, I like this boy heaps. His nose and who keeps growing by leaps. But you suppose you will capture next week?
Then I'd capture one tiny, I'll capture one cute. You'd see I'd capture a deer that no hunter would shoot. A deer that's so nice it could sleep in your bed. If it weren't for those horns on top of his head. And speaking of horns that are just a bit queer, I'll bring back a family of deer. A father, a mother, 2 sisters, a brother, whose horns are connected from one to the other. Can't tell where they end and can't tell where they start. Then I'd capture one who's, well, fat. I'd capture one who's scrawny. You'd see I'd capture a scraggly foot, Mori Wanagani, a high-stepping animal as fast as the wind, from the blistering sand of the desert of Zin.
In the northeastern part of southwestern North Dakota.
Lives a very fine animal. It's called the Iota. But I'd capture one who's much finer than that.
In the northeastern west part of South Carolina.
And when people see him, they should say,
Now by thunder, this Nuzu is really quite a wonder.
now most beasts are quite friendly, but still in some lands. Some beasts are too dangerous to catch with bare hands. For those that are ugly and vicious and mean, I'll build a bad animal catching machine. You see, it's rather expensive to build such a kit, but with it, no hunter will ever get bit. Huh? Doing. Doing. And then I'd use it to bag a big bug who's very surprising. You see, it's a fella who has a propeller for rising. And zooming around, making cross-country hops from Texas to Boston in only 2 stops. Now that, for a bug, is just quite tops. And then when I caught him, the next thing you'll know, I'll go and I'll capture a wild dick. Tack? With X's that win.
Tic-tac-toe. Tic-tac-toe. Tic-tac-toe.
And zeros that lose
Tic-tac-toe.
can look mighty good in my new zoo of McGrews. Now, in the cave of Gatroom lives a beast called the Natch that no other hunter's been able to catch. He's hidden for years in his cave with a pal, and no one's been able to make him come out.
But I'll cook them out with a wonderful meal. I will cook up a dish that is just to his taste. 3 chicken gorchetas made of library peas.
Oh, and then sprinkled with peanut shucks, pickled and spiced, then baked at 600 degrees after iced.
Here.
And then people would flock to my zoo in a mops.
McGrew.
They will say,
Does a wonderful job. He hunts with such vim. He hunts with such vigor. His Nuzu McGrew gets bigger and bigger.
and speaking of birds, there's a Russian Paluski, whose headski is redski and belly is blueski.
Blueski.
Redski. And when people see him, they should say. And when people see him, they should say. And when people see him, they should say.
Now I like this boy keeps. Gaga! No keeper before ever keeps what he keeps. Gaga! No keeper before ever do what he do.
Then just to show them, I'd sell to Kachu. You'd see I'd capture an itch cup, a pre, a prue, a nurgle, a nerd,
Hey!
and a sneer snucker too. I'll bring back a gwim, a gork, a gasket. I'll bring back a gooch from the wilds of Nantasket.
Gosh! From the wilds of Nantasket.
And then people will say when they see these bips bounding,
Oh, this Nuzu Magruzu is simply astounding. He hunts so much. Oh. You think he would drop? When do you suppose this young fellow will stop?
stop! Well, I should, but I won't until I've captured the Vizima-Wizimadil. You see, it's the world's biggest bird from the islands of Wark, who only eats pine trees and spits out the bark. And boy, when I get him back home to my park, the whole world will say,
Now the Jews made his mark. These wonderful, marvelous beasts that he chooses have made him the greatest of all the Magruskins.
wow, the all cheer! What a wonderful zoo. It's the gold-darnest zoo on the face of the earth. Yeah, that's just what I do.
Said young Gerald McGrew.
I'd make a few changes if I ran this zoo.
Thinking we're gods, we rise, we crave.
Forgetting humility, we dig our grave.
Just like McGrew, the world isn't ours.
Remember, it's God who has the power.
Thank you.
Open interpretation explores a single published selection and is presented by a single competitor. In this fun event, students face the challenge of dramatizing all of their own characters and scenes. This year's National Open Interpretation Champion is Benjamin Neumann. His interpretation is from Dennis, an original masterpiece. The subject is, no matter our faults, we're made perfectly according to God's will. Benjamin didn't actually plan to do an open this year until he read this book. He was brought to tears and realized, despite his own faults, that he could help others understand theirs are perfect in God's will. Welcome, Mr. Benjamin Neumann.
Hi, my name is Dennis. For some, my body may make you feel uncomfortable. That's okay. I see my body.
Have you ever felt like your weaknesses were too much to get around? Like you couldn't do anything except worry about your limitations? Have you felt too broken, too imperfect, too flawed? I have. I have questioned God for putting flaws in my life. I have asked myself, am I worthy of love, of forgiveness? And should I have even been created? But yet, here I am. And here you are. And here's Dennis, an original masterpiece by Eddie James.
So much has changed for me. I met a girl. You see, I was walking to school and carrying my books, and carrying things isn't really my specialty. So I dropped them. And when I drop my books, it's a whole operation to pick them back up. So I was bending down to pick up my books, and And I realized they've already been picked up by a beautiful girl. And she offered to walk me to class. And far be it from me to stop a beautiful girl from doing her good deed of the day. So we walked, and eventually I got to class, and I sat down at my desk, and she set my books on my desk for me. And then she started to walk away. But then she turned around again, and she said,
Hi, you're Dennis, right? My name is Lisa. Dennis, I was wondering, do you want to go skating tomorrow night?
Skating? At first I thought, this is some kind of cruel joke. But then I saw a look in her green eyes. She was serious. So I said to her, Lisa, don't you see my body? It doesn't skate.
Don't worry, Dennis. If you fall, I will pick you up.
Well, being the daredevil I am, I accepted her offer, and what a time I had. Although I did scare a lot of people. And they were like, which way is he going? To the left, or to the right, or both. But it didn't matter. I had fun. And then after Lisa brought me back to my house, and she said,
Dennis, what about tomorrow night, instead of skating, let's go swimming.
Lisa, you know this. My body, it doesn't swim.
Don't worry, Dennis. If you start to sink, I will hold you up.
So I accepted, once again. And for the first time in my life, I felt the sun on parts of my body I've always been too scared to expose. The clouds, the sun, the water, the friendship. It amazes me that some people take these things for granted. After we swam, we got dinner, and Lisa, she told me about her dreams. Oh, her dreams. But then she looked to me, and she said, Dennis,
what are your dreams?
I've never been asked that question before. But I told her about my dream I've always had, ever since I was little. In my dream, I would get out of bed, and I'm a full person. And when I look in the mirror, I'm normal. My leg is straight. face. My arms can carry books and swim and move. My hands, oh, these hands. They're usable. My face is normal. And as I talk, my vocal cords start to sound like magic. And as I delight in my dream, I always have a conversation with God, telling him how upset I am that he made me like this. Do you know what I could have done if you made me normal? Do you know how much I could have done for you? No, Dennis. Dennis, you don't get it, do you? Those faults, those weaknesses, handicaps, they're what make you unique. Everyone has a handicap. Some are emotional, others are spiritual, and some are physical like yours, Dennis. But those handicaps are what make you Dennis, what make you God's original masterpiece. Whenever I would hear this, I would get so upset. Because when I look in the mirror, I'm the same old thing. Me. Lisa, why do you like me? Oh, Dennis. Dennis, my dear. I have dedicated my life to making people realize that their dreams have already come true. So now when I wake up, when I look in the mirror, I'm not mad. Because when I was made, God broke the mold. But he didn't do it out of shame. No, he did it so I can be free by his unchanging grace. I'm his original masterpiece. Masterpiece. What a beautiful word. Masterpiece. No matter your limitations, your handicaps, or your weaknesses, remember that you are God's original masterpiece. Thank you. God bless.
In Persuasive, competitors try to persuade an audience toward a particular point of view or course of action. This event gives them an especially good chance to speak on topics about which they are passionate. Our Persuasive national champion presenting his piece, Living on the Flip Side of Life, Stanton. This speech was written for parents and students alike and Pierce hopes it clearly illustrates what we often think are restrictions are really for our good. He shares that the speech has taught him just how much God takes our humble offerings and uses them for his glory. Pierce would like to thank his parents for loving him so very well. Ladies and gentlemen, Pierce Stanton.
Congratulations. You just won your dream vacation, a $300,000 cruise to the destination of your choice. If I sound really sad right now, it's because you're about to be. The only condition on this vacation is that you leave behind your smartphone. It's a question I've been thinking a lot about recently. What would you do if you were stuck on a tropical island paradise with nothing to do but frolic in the sun and enjoy the weather? My Apologia science textbook didn't really give me an answer. So I decided to formulate an experiment and find out for myself. Step 1, walk out the front door, because I actually live on an island. Now, Beaufort, South Carolina may not be paradise, but at least there's enough alligators to make it interesting. But as I observed the neighbors, I noticed a common trend. Whether they were enjoying the ocean view, spending time with their dog, or even just being friendly, their actions led me to one inevitable conclusion. More than any other anatomical appendage, gravity's strongest effects are seen on the head. America has a problem. The American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatrists reports that teenagers spend 9 hours of their day on a smartphone. That means when the average American child reaches age 18, they will have spent 24 hours, 365 years of their life on a screen. As a result, when these kids reach adulthood, like I did a few months ago, they have some pretty warped views on life. Forbes magazine reported that given the choice, most millennials would rather have a smartphone than brush their teeth. But I'm not just here to inform you about the pitfalls of technology. If you need a tutorial on that subject, just sign up to judge an online NCFCA tournament. Instead, I would like to talk about a solution. But it's not going to be easy. Ending our digital addiction will require us to take a step back into the dark ages and completely abandon our modern way of life. In the next few minutes, I would like to persuade you to join the Amish community. I mean, get a flip phone. Now, I must admit, giving this speech comes with a major conflict of interest. No, I'm not a BlackBerry salesman. I'm just a disgruntled high school student who got tired of my judges checking their phones during my speeches. But the benefits I've experienced with my own flip phone have not only made me want to share those benefits with others, it's also taught me that my parents actually know a lot more about life than I do. So in the next few minutes, any doubts you may have about the ability of a flip phone to dramatically improve your life will be immediately dispelled as we take an objective look at why you should get one too. I have 3 very simple, yet also very persuasive reasons you should get a flip phone. The first is that flip phones are terrible. Disincentives are one of the best ways to change our behavior. For example, when I was 5 years old, I absolutely detested green beans. So one day, I decided that I would have a showdown. If I had to eat my green beans, I guess I wasn't eating anything. But that challenge just gave my dad, a Marine Corps gunnery sergeant, a chance to be creative. When I finally got hungry enough to eat my dinner, instead of the plate of vegetables I had before, a rather healthy-looking smoothie was waiting for me. Needless to say, I was cured of my aversions to this particular vegetable. But the solution to loving your phone too much is getting a phone you hate. As best-selling author Mark Lukács put it, it's inconvenient to have a flip phone, which is kind of the point. But the so-called inconveniences actually act as blessings in disguise. If you have a flip phone, you don't waste hours of your day scrolling through social media because you can't. You don't check your email 20 times a day like the rest of Americans because you can't. And you will never join the ranks of the more than 400 people who, according to the Telegraph, died taking selfies because you can't. The things that flip phones can't offer is what really makes them attractive. Their simplicity acts as protection, not only from our own selfish tendencies, but also from outside influences. Get a flip phone and scams suddenly become hilarious because there's no way to actually click the fishy hyperlinks they send you. More and more people are realizing the benefits of flip phoning, which is actually going to be our second, very persuasive reason you should get a flip phone. Everyone is doing it. According to USA Today, searches for flip phones among young Americans are up by a mere 15,369%. An increasing number of Americans are choosing to live on the flip side of life because it's fun. If you want to start a conversation, just pull out a flip phone. Psychologist Josh Feinberg described the experience by saying, it's like having a pet dinosaur. People are both shocked that you can actually live with a flip phone and surprised because it really is that cool. Even high school senior Ava Coyle found that her flip phone was a major conversation starter, just for a much different reason. People would ask, what did you do? Are you grounded? Paradoxically, an increasing number of Americans are choosing flip phones because they are unique. Instead of stifling conversations, flip phones start conversations. They spark laughter, and they teach us that the most important things in life are often the most ordinary. Get a flip phone, and you'll learn patience while texting, navigating without Google Maps, and even just being bored while waiting in line. We've frankly forgotten that these adventures are crucial to the human experience. The things that sound like a negative, including boredom, in reality force us to turn our attention off of ourselves and on to others, which is going to be our third and final reason for flipping the script. Society needs hearing aids. America has lost the ability to listen. We are mesmerized by our screens at the expense of ignoring others, perhaps even the most vulnerable. A groundbreaking study by the University of California found that when adults are on their phones, children feel ignored, leading to a condition the researchers called still-faced syndrome. There's no conversation, no engagement, and often no facial expression by an adult using a smartphone. As a result, the study concluded that the outward appearance to a child is a lack of responsiveness. Something is more important than a conversation. As a result, Americans live in a culture of silence. In the elevator, in the grocery line, even on the road, we are stuck to a screen. But in a world that's desperately craving some more humanity, flip phones are affecting a change. That's a common theme I noticed among many different users of flip phones who wrote about their experiences. One man, writing for The Guardian, said that getting a flip phone made him a better husband because he started listening to his wife instead of worrying about work. Another user said that I had more fun with people. I had more conversations, more engagement, and more connection. Choosing to put away the phones and listen to other people is an incredibly courageous decision. But it is one that Christians should be leading. The Apostle James wrote in James 1:19, "Let every man be swift to hear." Because when we can't hear others, we're only hurting ourselves. Ultimately, I believe that we should begin hating our phones and loving other people a lot more than we do. The flip phone, the smartphone, which was originally meant to facilitate conversations, has begun to stifle just that. But we can reverse this trend by simply doing what we did before. Invent a way for us to better communicate with other people. Ultimately, looking up and enjoying this life God has given us will not only make us all better people, it will also eliminate a lot of unnecessary neck pain. And if the flip phone's the way to do that, then hey, I'll take that vacation. Thank you all.
Parents, this might be a good opportunity if you'd like to take your intermission. The next two speeches that are going to be presented have potentially intense or sensitive information. In digital presentation, competitors get to deliver a prepared speech with digital visual aids. They learn how digital tools can enhance audience engagement and understanding, and inevitably, they learn to gracefully handle a few technical glitches along the way. This year's digital presentation national champion is Elyasha Deshpande. The impact of this speech, entitled Redeemed, was very personal to Elyasha. The piece testifies to the fact that the faith every Christian carries and the choices we make every day can change everything. Elyasha wanted to send special thanks to her brother and her hero, Avishai. Ladies and gentlemen, Elyasha Deshpande.
Too far gone. A phrase that we use to describe a person or thing that is broken beyond repair. Well, we will soon see why this phrase is wrong. I'm going to take you back in time, all the way to the 1800s, to a small jungle state in India. This is where we will observe the impact of Christianity. We will soon see that nothing is too far gone for God in our time-traveling adventure. We will be taking 3 specific stops in time. First, before Christianity. Second, after Christianity. And lastly, the present day. This speech will show that no matter what society tells us, nothing is too far gone for God. So buckle up, because this is going to be a very rough ride. So without further ado, let's go to our first stop in time, which is before Christianity. Now, when I say India, what exactly do you think of? Perhaps you think of their really tasty food, or maybe the way they dress, or many other popular stereotypes. And although some of these happen to be true, most of them come from this specific part in India. And when looking at this map, it's easy to discard the smaller states on the top right corner, which are known as the Seven Sisters. And on the edge is a small orange dot called Nagaland, pronounced Na-ga-land. I know, it's an interesting name. In fact, Joseph S. Thong, an author who writes historical books about Nagaland, speculates that the name either means the people of the snake, the people with big earrings, or the land of the naked people, which gives an idea of who lived here. Now, the people living here during this time were not exactly civil. In fact, they were considered savages, from their feathers down to their clothing. You see, the Nagas had a problem. They were headhunters. They believed that the soul of a person is in the head, and the amount of souls you have also equals the amount of power you have. Therefore, the Nagas would take heads. Then they would proceed to hang their achievement outside of their houses to show pride and power. According to Nagaland's official state portal, the people were split up into 17 different tribes. And because of this, there was a lot of competition between them. Now, this headhunting was such a problem that some members even had rooms full of skulls, like this one. Some members even wore necklaces with little wooden heads to signify how many people they had killed. According to an article that ER Publications released, along with headhunting, the Nagas also practiced something called animism, which is a religion of worshiping nature and animals. Now, clearly, this state was far from perfect, and from their feathers down to their religion, no one had the courage to come to such a savage land, except for one group of people, missionaries. Despite the warnings and the mocking comments they received, the missionaries braved the jungle. According to the Hindustan Times, the first missionaries to ever set foot on Nagaland came from the American Baptist Foreign Mission Society. And it was only around 1872 when the first church was planted. But even then, the missionaries had a long way to go. They had only reached one village, out of one tribe, out of 17 different tribes. But despite what everyone thought of about Nagaland being too far gone, the missionaries never gave up on what God had commanded them to do. And with this, we can move to our second stop in time, which is after Christianity. Now, moving forward in time to around the 1900s, a Naga mystic priest was hunting for a tiger to sacrifice in the dark forest when he mysteriously died. Now, no one in the village knew how he died, so they naturally assumed that since he was a priest, the spirits must be disappointed in him and that his body was definitely cursed. No one, not even the brave Naga warriors, had the courage to even touch the body. Now, the man who died had an adult son named Murung Tsiba, and even he thought that his father was cursed. It was at this time that the missionaries found the body and buried it with no fear. And this made Murung Tsiba, the man's son, very curious. These missionaries were not afraid of curses, and most of all, they were loving. He followed them and eventually became one of the first Christians in his village. And this is where things changed for the better. The gospel started to spread throughout his family and eventually started to spread throughout his village. Christianity grew and grew, causing some of the headhunting to cease. Finally, after all those years of conflict and unrest, there was peace in Murung Tsiba's tribe. Now, the gospel somehow made its way to a woman living in a different village. She accepted Christ, and after a tremendous storm, her livestock was untouched. All the other members in her village saw this supernatural power, and they wanted it for themselves. Not long after that, the village turned from their old ways. Nagaland continued to grow in their faith until most of the tribes had accepted Christianity and most of the headhunting had come to an end. But of course, after every sunrise, there is a sunset. According to the CSCR, which stands for the Center for Strategic and Contemporary Research, Not long after India gained its independence in 1947, Nagaland was swarming with rebels and separatists, causing war to spread throughout the land. This left the Nagas in a divided state. They truly thought that they were too far gone for anyone to save. But God had a plan. Because in 1972, Billy Graham traveled and spoke to the Nagas, spreading the love of God throughout the people. According to the Billy Graham Library, over 500,000 people attended that crusade. This sparked another light in the Nagas. And according to the Murung Express, the Nagaland Baptist Churches Council made a covenant to send 10,000 missionaries and evangelists to world missions. They realized something. They were never too far gone for their heavenly Father. Now with this, we can move on to our final stop in time, which is the present day. Now moving forward in time to 2025, Nagaland is thriving. A website called Frontline explains that there are close to 2,000 churches in the region, with 80% of the population identifying as Christians. Frontline even goes on to state that Nagaland hosts the largest community of Baptist Christians in the entire world. Their culture has changed astronomically. The hurt, the violence, and the darkness, gone. Just because of the love of Christ. According to the International Journal of Creative Research, they expressed the change of culture, saying, quote, Christianity changed Naga society socially and spiritually, end quote. And we can see this because the Nagas are deeply rooted in their faith. Remember that covenant they made in the 70s? Well, according to the Murung Express, they have already sent out over 14,000 missionaries and evangelists to world missions, clearly leaving the number 10,000 in the dust. Despite believing in animism, and despite the murder and violence, God redeemed this state, and he used it for his purpose. From divided to united. From headhunting to church planting. Yes, this transformation inspired many other citizens to become missionaries, spreading the gospel to not only India, but also America. Now, this impact not only changed one generation, but it changed entire bloodlines. How do I know all of this? Well, Murung Tsiba, the man's son, was my grandma's grandfather. In fact, my grandmother even attended Billy Graham's crusade. Most of the information you heard in the speech comes from my family. Now, my grandmother currently lives in Nagaland, where she has raised 5 amazing kids, all of them loving God with all of their hearts, and one of them being my amazing mom. So, remember, the faith that you have and the choices that you make every single day can change everything. Too far gone. A phrase that we use to describe a person or thing that is broken beyond repair. But God, he redefines this phrase with his redeeming love as one word. Redeemed. Thank you.
In informative, Competitors explain a topic from their own unique perspective. It's amazing how many creative and serious speech topics you'll hear in this category. This year's National Informative Champion is Melody Jardinico. Melody wrote this piece entitled From Sacred to Souled, The Decline of Values, mid-season when the Lord put the calling on her heart to share the topic. She hopes the speech will extend an invitation to the listener to see inner struggles as a call to come back home to the Lord. Ladies and gentlemen, Melody Jardinico.
He texts good morning every day, always calls you beautiful, listens, supports, and never argues. You finally feel seen. The only flaw? He isn't real. And in 2023, Rosanna Ramos made headlines for marrying her AI chat boyfriend, an artificially intelligent companion powered by a $19.99 monthly fee. And Rosanna Ramos isn't the only one. Millions are now turning to commodified love, affection, and relationships. Intimacy now has a price tag. But can something bought truly be called love? In this speech, I want to inform you how intimacy is no longer a personal connection, but it's for sale. In a world where we constantly crave love, we're consistently choosing what's fake. We're gonna be examining this through three main replacements shaped by this issue. First, from sacred to souled. Second, from commitment to convenience. And finally, from brokenness to restoration. It's no secret that our hearts long for others. The desire for connection was something that was intended to be special, but instead has been replaced with our first counterfeit, from sacred to souled. In the 1940s, psychoanalyst Renee Spitz noticed something tragic. Babies in hospitals were dying, despite being fed and medically cared for. His study concluded that attention-deprived infants ultimately led to inconsolable crying, weight loss, and death. The absence of their own mother's love was absolutely fateful. This study is cited in Dr. Dean Ornish's book, Love and Survival, concluding that intimacy is as vital as food and water. But to Dr. Ornish, he doesn't view this as a sacred covenant, just a means to an end. He states that, quote, love and intimacy are powerful determinants of our health and survival. Yet mystery remains. No one can truly explain why love and intimacy matters so much, unquote. Science proves what Scripture has always said. Intimacy is essential to life, but when treated as a means to an end and not a covenant, we don't start craving it, but rather, we start buying it. The 2016 launch of the website OnlyFans combines social media and pornography. 305 million active users paying for things like private chats, videos, and explicit content. Yet behind cheap intimacy lies a costly consequence. Neuroscientist Donald Hilton found that long-term pornography consumption completely shrinks the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain that is in charge of decision-making and impulse control. The more that we start to consume what's fake, the harder it is to choose what's real. In the case of accountant and husband and a 40-year-old man named Joe Normal, he testifies to spending $150 a month on OnlyFans. Yet despite keeping significant secrets from his wife, he tells reporter Nick Hilton, quote, this girl, who I can never truly interact with, makes me feel like my life has value. She makes me feel successful, like I'm taking a road I didn't take. It's a time machine. She is my hypothetical past wife. I am her hypothetical future father, unquote. OnlyFans creates a culture of quick and easy escapes. a place in which your failures and flaws aren't present, because the person on screen is paid to look away. But when love is marketed as a product, we slip into the second counterfeit, from commitment to convenience. McGill University student Logan Hall describes the new dating culture, stating, quote, "Intimate moments are now a form of transaction, physical validation for physical reward," unquote. You see, my generation wants dates, wants intimacy, and wants relationships, but nobody wants to experience the consequences of getting their own heart broken. Thus came the new term, situationships, a term in which 50% of 13 through 34-year-olds say they've already experienced. It's defined by the Urban Dictionary, definitions made by the people, as, quote, "When two people do everything you would do in a relationship, but you're not dating and you have no label," unquote. Situationships allow us to enjoy the perks, but without the consequences. Yet if we turn to Ephesians 5, verse 11, it cites that the two become one. Intimacy was originally designed by God to be a sacred covenant, a connection, a promise between male and female. Yet when it's treated as a means to an end, we see significant consequences. A 2016 Harvard Medical School study found that in physical intimacy, there are two key elements that are released. First is dopamine, the feel-good reward chemical. But the second is oxytocin, the one that strengthens the connection between both partners. In fact, this connection is so powerful that it's equivalent to a mother and her newborn child. Yet if a person were to engage in physical intimate moments with different people, the dopamine craving increases, while the oxytocin bond grows increasingly weaker. A sacred act is now reduced to quick and easy pleasure. Jessica, age 29, shares, quote, "I thought casual intimacy would be fun and freeing, but instead it left me feeling used," unquote. Our culture intends to stop loneliness, but instead worsens it. Professor in sociology Daniel Briggs further explains that, quote, "The commodification of intimacy ruins us, as all we end up doing is looking for something that we can't find or can't ever replace," unquote. If this is the culture that we settle for, what exactly are we training ourselves to expect? Real connection requires real risk, yet culture says it's not worth it. It wasn't until my first heartbreak that I understood why we settle for artificial love. It numbs us from the cost of true connection. The Institute for Family Studies found that the Christian premarital relation rate has nearly doubled from 2008 through 2021. And today, 50% of pastors and 76% of young Christians actively look for pornography on a daily basis. Yet despite these problems that exist in our own culture today, God offers the greatest countermeasure of all by taking brokenness to restoration. In the book of Hosea, the prophet is instructed to marry Gomer, a prostitute who would remain unfaithful. Yet despite her broken story, God uses it to paint a picture of Israel's consistent pursuit for counterfeits. Hosea chapter 2, verse 7 cites, quote, "She will chase after her lovers, but she won't be able to catch them. She will search for them, but not find them," unquote. That feeling of looking for something that you just can't get, that's something that we all experience, right? I mean, Gomer's story isn't just a piece of history, but it's stories of people like you and I. Take Daniel, a husband, a believer, someone you would see in your own church pews. Yet behind his attendance was a 28-year struggle with pornography. Yet every single time he opened up his screen for quick and easy pleasure, he would hear the Lord saying to him, quote, "Every time you watched pornography, I was there, and I love you more than you could imagine," unquote. Daniel's story started with restoration. And today he walks in freedom through Joseph Prince Ministries, an organization dedicated to taking people out of addiction. And that type of healing is something that begins with honesty. In friendships, in churches, and families, it's vital to create spaces where people can talk about their hidden addictions and experience real restoration. Resources like Fight the New Drug and Restore to More exist for that very purpose, to take people out of a broken culture and put them back into restoration. Because even in our darkest moments, God never runs away. He simply comes closer. Despite Israel's consistent unfaithfulness, he promises them in Hosea chapter 2, verses 19 to 20, saying, quote, I will make you my wife forever, promising you righteousness and justice, unfailing love and compassion. I will know you, and you will finally know me as the Lord, unquote. That's not a hookup, it's a covenant. Because like Rosanna, you could subscribe to affection. Like Daniel, you can escape through a screen. And like Jessica, you can chase thrill after thrill. But you can't buy healing. You can't purchase love. And you can't imitate the kind of closeness that your very own soul was made for. Intimacy is no longer a personal connection. It's for sale. Yet despite the world that constantly offers us imitations, God offers us himself. No transaction, no monthly fee, just a simple invitation that you are fully known, you are fully seen, and you are fully loved. The only question is, are you willing to receive that? Thank you.
Original interpretation invites speakers to present an original literary work or a derivative work. They get to perform a story that they've written themselves or offer a new and fresh take on a work derived from another source. This year's National Original Interpretation Champion is Javeth Centeno. Presenting his piece, The True Source of Strength, Javeth would like to thank the children of the Alamo Area Co-op for being his first audience, his club, HCC, for always being supportive, his little brother, Josiah, for all the prayers, and his dad for teaching him the lesson of what it is to be truly strong. Javeth decided to turn this lesson into his original. The story from the Bible has been one of the most important of his life. He gives all glory to God and dedicates this speech to his friends and family and everyone who supported him along the way. His final thought was a happy birthday to his mom today. Ladies and gentlemen, Javeth Centeno.
Why, hello there, everybody. My name is Nugs, the narrator. Nugs, the narrator. Make sure you get it right. And today, I am going to be your narrator. A little on the nose, I know. Now, today's book is a personal favorite of mine, and I hope it will be one of yours too. Jaquan, could you toss me that book over there? Oh, thank you. Now, today's book is titled The True Source of Strength, written by Javeth Centeno, and derived from Judges 13 through 16. And that is the lesson we will learn today, the true source of strength. So for the duration of this presentation, I'll be handing off the spotlight, or I guess in this case, spotlights, to someone who I believe could teach us a lot on the matter. He is pretty strong himself. In fact, the strongest man to ever live. So if I could introduce the one and the only.
All right, Nugs. All right, Nugs, thank you. But your time is up. Hello there, everybody. What a wonderful, beautiful audience we have here today. Now, before we can get into anything at all, we need to establish one thing, and that is I am strong. And I mean like really, really, really strong. Like I'm stronger than you, I'm stronger than you, I'm stronger than you right there. Yes, I'm stronger than you. In fact, I am so strong, I don't even need help opening pickle jars. And I don't even like pickles. They're disgusting. In fact, one time I was in the city of Gaza, beautiful place, and I see these huge city gates, and at that moment I realized something. These gates are like the lid of a pickle jar. So there has to be something good inside. So I take my trusty old chains, I wrap them around these huge city gates, I rip them off the hinges, and I drag these things for miles. These things are huge, probably like 7 stories high, probably even higher, but I just did that because that is how strong I am. Now, I know, I see it on your faces. I already know the question that's going around in your heads. But first, I think you've noticed something based off of my incredible strength, impressive feats, and immaculate physique. I know you know it. My name is Samson. And I already know the question going around in your heads tonight because I get this question about 1,000 times a day. And it's probably something like,
Samson, how can we, the wonderful audience, know and learn how to be strong like you? Could you tell us that, please?
Well, of course I can, and thank you for asking. So buckle up, open your eyes, tune your ears, grab a blanket, maybe a snuggle buddy, and get ready for story time with Samson. So a long, long time ago, in a nation far, far away, I am an angel. And today I search for the wife of Manoah. Oh, look, there she is.
Goodness gracious! You're an angel?
Yes, I am. And you will have a child. This child will be really, really strong as long as he keeps his Nazarite vows.
Nazarite vow. Mr. Angel, sir, I definitely know what the Nazarite vow is and all, but I feel like our audience might not. So for their sake, and I see a confused fellow right there, could you please explain that to me? Because I'm just dying to know. I mean, I bet they're dying to know.
Yes, simply put, 1, he cannot touch dead bodies. 2, he cannot drink wine. And the big one, 3, he cannot cut his hair. Goodbye. End of story. Now, as crazy as it sounds, that little buff baby was actually me. I know, a little shocking. And this is a little bit of an unrelated topic here, but I am extremely hungry. Got some food for me, pal? What about you? You? I did not pre-order on the website, so I have been starving. And all this time, the day just keeps getting longer. And whoa! Would you look at that right there? That right there, that is a dead lion. A dead lion. Listen, you do not see that every day. The king of the jungle simply killed. I'm gonna logically assume here, using a bit of deductive reasoning, whoever killed that lion must have been a pretty smart, charming, and handsome individual. Well, guess what? It was me! I killed that lion! He thought I had him. He thought he could waltz into my territory, so, I rough him up a little bit, with a couple of these, a little bit of those, and now that boy is dead. Oh. Would you look at that? There is some bees making some honey in the carcass of the lion. That is perfect. I am starving after all. I mean, it's too bad it's in a dead body, but hey, my motto, when there's honey in a dead body, that's honey going in my tummy. You feel me, gang? I know. It's pretty wise. So I'm just gonna go ahead and dig in. Who are you? I am your conscience, Samson.
And as your conscience, I feel legally obligated to remind you that touching dead bodies is the first of your Nazarite vows. You do remember that, don't you? Yeah, but the thing is, conscience, I'm hungry. Yeah, Samson, the thing is, that body isn't alive no more. It's dead, which violates the terms of our contract. Yeah, but the thing is, conscience, you live in my head and not my stomach. So why don't you just zip it, all right? Yeah, but listen to me. Your strength is dependent on these vows. What happens if you break them completely? Yeah, but, whoa, that's enough, man. All right, I'm getting dizzy. The audience is getting dizzy, and they've seen enough spinning in NCFCA anyways. Anyways, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna eat all the honey I want. Because as I also always say, when my tummy is rumbling, I don't care if I'm stumbling. You feel me, guys? Come on. Ooh, that was pretty good. And a little pro Samson tip, I use it as a moisturizer, helps open up the pores, exfoliate the skin, all that good stuff. Anyways, time to go to that new party I was invited to. Because as Samson, I do get invited to all of the parties. Hello? There we go. Yeah. Hey, everybody!
Yeah, you see, Jeff, the other day I was buying myself a property in Egypt. And once they gave me this property, I continued to customer. Samson! What is up, man? Come party with us. So glad you could show up. Sorry we didn't hear the door knocking.
Hey, what's up, Duncan? It's okay. I forgive you. Anyways, what are we gonna be doing today? Because I am ready to get my party on.
Well, right now, we're serving up some of the finest wine. It's from my own vineyard, actually. I'll get you a glass. You see right here, Samson, this is called a sinful brew. I'm kidding. It's just wine. Go ahead. Would you like to have a glass? Go ahead. Try some.
Wine. Never had that before, I suppose. Yeah, oh, great. You're back, conscience. All right, listen up, Twinkle Toes. You already broke the first of your Nazarite vows. Are you really ready to break numero dos, which I remind you, is drinking wine? Do you really want to do that to yourself? What if you lose all of your strength? Listen, I suppose you're onto something there, but I gotta propose a little something here. See this glass of wine that Duncan just gave me? This represents me being the popular guy here. And as the popular guy, I really don't know what else you expect me to do or drink. Water, a Capri Sun? Pfft, you get out of here, man. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drink all the wine I want. Cause with my tummy, I don't know if that applies here, it's wine, it's pretty good, all right? Ooh. That's some good stuff right there. No, it's not. I lied. No, it's not. Duncan, can I get that Capri Sun? Capri Suns do some wonders. Anyway, time to go visit my new wife, Delilah. Because there's Samson. I do get quite the bit of wives, I'll just tell you. Hey, Delilah. Just want to let you know, now that we are all alone, I think you are the prettiest woman I've married this week. Just saying, just saying.
Samson, you are such a flirt, Pooks. But I've always wondered just one little thing. How are you so strong? What is the secret to your strength, boo? You want to tell me? You do love me, don't you? Come on, tell me. It's me.
Go away, conscience. We're trying to have a moment here. All right. Listen, Delilah. You are really pretty. And that means really trustworthy in my book. So, basically, I got a couple of rules I gotta follow. I can't touch dead bodies. I can't drink wine. And I guess the big one now is I can't cut my hair. But now that I've told you all of this, I'm gonna go to sleep now.
What a foolish little man! Little does he know those silly Philistines paid me to find a secret. So now I'm gonna get a nice big bag of cash. I'm gonna take it to the store and I'm gonna trade it in for a nice bag to hold all my cash in. It's gonna be very nice. But as of now, business is business, so let's tie this boy up. Sing! I'm gonna take this hair and I'm gonna put it over here. Guards, get in here now before he wakes up!
Philistines! Audience, y'all are in for a treat. A Samson classic. I'm gonna beat up some Philistines, grab a drink, grab a girl, and ride off into the sunset in my new 2019 Chevy Silverado. So, let us make these bonds like a pickle jar and open them. Let me try that one more time, guys. It's been a long day. What's going on? Let me check that mirror over there. Oh, no, Delilah! What happened to my hair? No, they're taking me away now. What happened? Did somebody cut it? You guys can't take me away like this. I am Samson. I am Samson.
It is me, Nugs, your narrator, once again. And what a tragic tale that was, truly so sad. But I would like to share a scripture. Joshua 1, verse 9 reads, quote, "Have I not commanded you, be strong." You see, the story of Samson is a story of strength. But where did this strength come from? Simple answer, obedience. As long as Samson was obedient to his vows, he was the strongest man to ever walk the earth. But with each vow that he broke, his soul became weaker until eventually, so did he. Arnold Schwarzenegger, a very strong man, once said, what was it? Oh, yes.
Strength does not simply come from winning. When you go through hardships and choose not to surrender, that is strength.
End quote. You see, when Samson surrendered to his sin, he lost his strength. And one last scripture, James 1, verse 12. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, for having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. End quote. You see, endurance through physical pain is the key to physical strength. But endurance through sin, through temptation, is the key to spiritual strength. I hope we can all take home a lesson from the story of Samson, to endure through hardships and through sin, so strength may come upon us all, in one form or another.
Thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure.
And finally, in apologetics, judges who are comfortable agreeing to our statement of faith hear students answer a question that requires them to present a defense of the basic tenets of the Christian faith. They can prepare notes in advance, but they only have 4 minutes to get ready to speak on the topic they select. Answering the prompt, "Should Christians be tolerant?" is our apologetics national champion, Jonathan Paul. Jonathan thinks everyone should try apologetics. He says it's unique among all the events in that it is most directly applicable to life. Not everybody gives formal speeches, but everybody does need to be prepared to have a conversation with a neighbor or a friend. For Jonathan, viewing apologetics in this way has been a mind shift for him. So welcome to the stage, Mr. Jonathan Paul.
A little over a year ago, my older brother Joshua met a friend through his art class. We'll call the friend Daniel. Now, Joshua and Daniel became quick friends. They started meeting together regularly because Joshua wanted to pour into Daniel's life. He wanted to show him the love of Christ. And so they started meeting together, and their conversations started somewhat surface level. They would talk about drawing, they would draw together, talk about drawing. They really like drawing. But soon, the conversations got deeper. One day, Daniel asked Joshua, "What do you think of people who practice homosexuality?" Joshua explained that while he sees those people as made in the image of God and they have dignity because of that fact, he disagrees with their decision. Daniel couldn't accept this. So he broke off the relationship with Joshua because he believed that Joshua wasn't tolerant. And ultimately, this brings us to a question that's important for Christians to answer today, especially today in the culture we live in. Should Christians be tolerant? And throughout this speech, we will see that yes, Christians should be tolerant. Bet you weren't expecting that. But what I mean by tolerance is different than what the world means by tolerance right now. What I want to talk about is the old, original sense of the word tolerance. So first, we'll look at that old, true sense and see why, yes, that lines up with Scripture and Jesus' teachings. But then, we'll look at the new sense, the perverted sense, and see how it is not what Christians should operate under. So let's start with that old sense. C.S. Lewis, or rather pastor and author Dr. John Piper, explains in an article for Desiring God that old tolerance essentially meant that if you disagree with someone, you will not persecute them or be prejudiced against them because of that disagreement. He explains that the center of old tolerance, the basis on which it stands, is the idea that there is objective truth, and that whether or not you disagree with someone on what that truth is, you work together to attempt to find that truth. And in this sense, this kind of tolerance is absolutely taught throughout Scripture. In Jesus' seminal Sermon on the Mount, he explains to his followers, as recorded in Matthew 5:44, that they are to love their enemies. This was countercultural for the time, and it still is today. Even those you disagree with, no matter how vehemently, you are to love. Jesus expresses the importance of this love when he tells his disciples how the world will know them in John 13:35. He doesn't say the world will know you because of your intellect or your ability to speak or act. Instead, he says, by this, they will know that you are my disciple, if you have love for one another. That's how important it is. But what exactly does this love look like? That's a great question. Paul answers that in 1 Corinthians 13, saying that love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It does not insist on its own way. It is not arrogant, resentful, or rude. This goes perfectly with the idea of old tolerance. No matter how much you disagree with someone, you choose not to be arrogant or rude in the conversation with that person, but instead choose to attempt to persuade them with grace and reason. Those words might sound a little bit familiar. But what is this new sense of tolerance that I speak of? Pastor Piper, again, is helpful here. He explains that new tolerance rejects conversation altogether, and it rejects the idea of objective truth. It instead says that if we disagree, that can be your truth, and this can be my truth. Now, anyone who's seen Fiddler on the Roof recognizes that this can't be correct. Quote, he's right and he's right. They can't both be right. We all implicitly agree with this. C.S. Lewis explains in his book, Mere Christianity, that we all implicitly agree to the idea of objective truth. He takes the example of two people quarreling over a bit of your orange, as he says, in classic C.S. Lewis fashion. And he explains that when someone wrongs you, commits injustice against you, takes a bit of your orange, you do not say, I was personally not a fan of that. That personally wasn't convenient to me. No, you say, that's not fair. That was objectively wrong. We all implicitly, through our quarreling, agree that there is objective truth. Now, some may say that this is just baked into the culture we grow up in. C.S. Lewis, again, is helpful here. He explains in his book, The Abolition of Man, that throughout society, he coins this term of the Tao, or this objective set of rules seen throughout societies, whether that be the ancient Mongols, the Romans, or the society we live in today. These basic rules of disloyalty, dishonesty, and murder being wrong. These are objective, outside standards of morality. We also see objective truth throughout nature. I can be tolerant of your idea that gravity doesn't exist, but once you jump off the cliff, the rocks at the bottom are not going to be tolerant of that. Ultimately, new tolerance cuts in the very face of old tolerance. Old tolerance says, we disagree, and I love you, and I want to find truth together. New tolerance says there's no conversation. You remember Daniel and Joshua? Daniel couldn't accept that Joshua could disagree with him and yet still love him. That they could have a fundamental, different understanding of how the world works, and yet Joshua can still pray for him and his salvation regularly, as he does. You see, we are called to old tolerance. May we be a people who can love and disagree, who can have a dispute and try to persuade with grace and reason and not prejudice or persecution. New tolerance says there is no truth. Old tolerance says there is truth. You're wrong. Let me take your hand and show you the truth. May we be a people who live by that kind of tolerance. Thank you.
I'd like to invite all of our speech national champions, as well as our debate, moot court, speaker, and all-around award winners to stage. It's okay, I know you might not be in tournament attire. Come on up. As we celebrate with and thank these winners, I'd like to take a moment to congratulate all of this season's competitors. Each of you have reached a goal that eludes most human beings, and that is the goal of being able to use your voice, to use it as a force for good. This ability will equip you to go confidently into the world and be a better ambassador for Christ. Congratulations to each and every one of you are in order. And one final round for this group, please. One final round of applause. We have a few closing announcements this evening. Our amazing keynote speaker, Mr. Daniel Darling. Thank you, Daniel, for your heartfelt message. He's going to be in the lobby for about 20 minutes after we finish. If you didn't get a chance as you were rushing off to either take your picture or go get dinner, to check out his 2 books, Away with Words and Agents of Grace. Daniel's writing is very much in line with what we do here, and I think you guys would be blessed by that. Dorms, guess what, guys? We are going home. I know most of the young people would stay here for another week, right? All right, our wonderful hosts have put a sheet of instructions under each of your door. If you are leaving before 6:30 a.m., please stop at the desk at Robertson and tell them if you haven't already done that. Okay, the reason for that is they need to be sure to have enough staff there to be able to check you out expeditiously. Because if you don't tell them and they don't have enough staff, the line will be long, and guess what will happen? You will miss your flight. That's bad. So please be sure to let them know that. Please be sure to find all your stuff and put it in your suitcase. Every year, there are piles, mountains, I might even say, of things that are left. They're out there. Lost and Found is out there where logistics was, so right outside the door. Please do not take things that are not yours. They're mine. UNW's Public Safety Office has shared with us that there are planned protests in St. Paul and also planned road construction between here and the airport tomorrow morning. They are suggesting if you have a morning flight, period, that you leave here absolutely no later than 8 a.m. We are going to send kind of a route that they've suggested to pass on to you. We will send that via email as soon as we're done here, as soon as one of us gets back to a computer. So we'll pass that on, but be sure to check that out because you're gonna want to be sure, again, that you get to the airport in time. Okay? All right, let's close out our time together with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, as we close out this showcase and this national championship, we want to give you honor. Thank you for the time that we've had to learn and grow and fellowship together. I ask that you bless each person and family here and that your hand of protection is on them as they return home. We ask graciously that you continue all the good work that you've done here to grow and enable us to be your ambassadors. Lord, we are so grateful for our time and our opportunities. We ask all these things in your Son, Jesus' precious name. Amen. Have a blessed night.